Hello, everybody. Now, usually the podcast doesn't have a sponsor, and indeed the podcast today doesn't have a sponsor. However, I feel I need to redress the balance with a particular product because yesterday for the Wrexham Aldershot match, I was in a live stream, which meant I had to mention throughout the broadcast the match ball sponsor, which was Wrexham Lager and Bootlegger 1974 Pilsner Lager. I did it quite often, but I kept calling it Bootlegger 1874 Pilsner Lager. Why? Because I'm stupid. And so I would like to just redress the balance here by saying that Bootlegger 1974 Pilsner Lager is a fine product and one that I'd recommend to anybody who is of legal drinking age. Now, as you can see, this Bootlegger 1974 Pilsner Lager is faulty because there is no Bootlegger 1974 Pilsner Lager inside it. However, fortunately, you can obtain one of these, which is a bottle of Bootlegger 1974 Pilsner Lager. And if you do this through a mere simple ceremony, taking advantage of gravity, you can transfer the contents of this into this and enjoy at your leisure Bootlegger 1974 Pilsner Lager. However, I know of all people, Bootlegger himself would exhort you to drink responsibly and moderately. Thank you. Final score, Wrexham 1, Aldershot Town 0. Not spectacular, but extremely gratifying. Wrexham are on a bit of a roll now, of course. Consecutive wins, 3 clean sheets in a row, and a bit of momentum building up. And quite frankly, I think in a congested season like this, with all the games compressed together, it seems to me that having games coming thick and fast when the momentum's in your favour could be a very good thing. We've got Maidenhead, who won at the racecourse and immediately rattled off 5 consecutive wins. Well, we've made a decent start. This match, coming hot on the heels of the Hartlepool game, saw Dean Keats choose the same 11, which is quite understandable, and Wrexham started very brightly. Frankly, in the first 10 minutes, we could have taken certainly the lead, should have taken a lead, could have taken a decisive lead. Opportunities opened up in the 5th minute. Maybe the best chance of the match, to be fair. It was a lovely move. Kwame Thomas would pick up where he left off on Tuesday, dominating in the end, holding the ball up really well. He flicked the ball down to the right-hand side, good burst into space by Rutherford, and he swept in an excellent first-time cross. Ponticelli was one-on-one with the keeper. The ball just arrived a little bit behind him, and when he can, by the time it took him to control it and correct his position, body position, the keeper had raced out quickly, made himself big, and was able to make the block. I must say that the goalkeeper, Brad James, who's making only his 6th career appearance, he's on loan from Middlesbrough, was outstanding and looks like a proper keeper. Built very similarly to Dan Bachman, dominant in the air, and made some very, very good saves. He would have had no chance a minute later, though, when, in a portent of what was to come, Wrexham worked Luke Young into a shooting position about 25 yards out. He drilled it, as he does. It took a heavy deflection and went looping beyond James and just wide of the left-hand post. And the early chances kept coming. Durrell cutting in from the right-hand side, lashing powerful shot in, couldn't quite pick out the corners, and again, James was able to hold on to it. It was impressive early on. Wrexham were full of energy, trying to push up the pitch. Aldershot also were keeping a high line, and it was a very entertaining, fluid game. In fact, it's strange to think that for the whole match, it was pretty end-to-end, it was very open, and yet there weren't that many good chances created and only 1 goal in it. All the chances in the first half were falling to Wrexham, though. Halfway through the first half, Durrell again cutting it onto his right foot, whipping in a shot with superb shape on it. Rutherford attacking it around the penalty spot. A glancing header from him, couldn't quite get enough on it, and it went wide of the right post. Thomas tried to get there for the tap-in. To be fair, I think it would have been difficult to do so. Then on the half hour, another break down the right-hand side. James Horsfield swinging an excellent crossing from right tight on the corner flag. Kwame Thomas inside the 6-yard box at the far post, climbing but heading over the bar. Just couldn't quite get on top of the header. It arrived just too high for him. And in injury time, Brad James called into action again. This time a free kick, 25 yards out. We saw Luke Young score from a set piece, of course, in the first game of the season. This was a bit further out, but he gave it a terrific rip. James acrobatically tipping it over the bar. I'd have to say, the sort of save that it's tempting to say, well, he ought to save those. It was directly above his head. However, the point is that James did very well to hold his position, because it was so far out, he might have been tempted to creep behind his wall. And if he'd started moving that way, Young ripped it in with such pace and power, I don't think James would have recovered his footing and the ball would have been in the net. So at half-time, Wrexham felt pretty comfortably on top, although that wasn't to discount Aldershot. They were energetic. They're a quick team who have plenty of pace about them, and their front three, which usually was Harry Panyatu going through the middle and Mohamed Bessemer cutting in for the left, the less notable Hungbo cutting in from the right, were lively, were trying to get in behind the defence and were looking to cause problems. The second half, Aldershot actually played better and started to carve out opportunities. In fact, Lainton had to be on his toes to make a couple of key saves in the first 6 minutes of the half. Firstly, Bessemer did well to feed Panyatu down the left channel, and Panyatu did very well to hold off his man, and from an unpromising position, slam a terrific shot across Lainton, which looked to be arrowing into the bottom right corner. A brilliant save by Lainton, lunging low with his left hand, and with a really strong wrist, managing to push the ball clear to safety. A couple of minutes later, again a very close thing. This time Lainton maybe didn't know too much about it, but he did the right thing. A corner swung beyond the far post, the crowded 6-yard box. The centre-back Giles Phillips got up, headed it down, and Lainton, who had done ever so well to scurry across his line and get there in time, made himself big and managed to stick out his right leg and knock it off the line. I must be honest, at first glance, it was so close in, I thought he'd headed it down and got it between Lainton's legs, but Lainton did ever so well to adjust, get his foot to it and clear it. And Wrexham got the benefit in the 64th minute when they took the lead. A free kick given. I'm talking rubbish. It wasn't a free kick at all. I'm obsessed with Luke Young hitting free kicks. I apologise. It all started, tellingly, with Elliot Durrell poking the ball behind Aldershot's defence to turn them and put them under pressure. Now, Aldershot, as I said, were energetic. They're a young team. They played with a high defensive line and they were trying to push up and squeeze. And of course, there's always a risk with that. And in the second half, Durrell started to play those sorts of balls quite instinctively. He was finding space, coming a bit narrower, and he was dinking those balls over the top. And he set up the start of the move that led to the goal by turning Aldershot's defence. Now, the initial move came to nothing, but Aldershot had to filter back, and that gave an opportunity for Jamie Echo to come forwards on the left-hand side into acres of space. He could have crossed it, but instead he pulled it back to Luke Young, who at the start of the move had been teed up in a similar position, but couldn't get the first touch right to line up a shot. This time, because Aldershot had retreated, Record could pick him out with a bit of time to work in, and he took a touch and just launched it. He let it go across him and launched it with what looked like the wrong foot with terrific velocity into the bottom left corner. A magnificent strike by Luke Young. Such a pure hit. I mean, I was lucky enough to commentate yesterday with Dixon McNeil, and we were both saying just how well he hit it. The cleanliness of the strike, it didn't curve, it didn't seem to rise or dip. It just went straight in the bottom left corner, and even a goalkeeper as good as James had absolutely no chance. To Aldershot's credit, they looked to come back, although within a minute Durrell had tried the same ball over the top and was a little unlucky not to release Kwame Thomas clear on goal. But their chances came right at the end of the match. Firstly, a corner from the left-hand side, 5 minutes left, again swung into the far post area. Lainton couldn't reach it this time. Nobody could get a touch on it, fortunately for Wrexham. And then, with 2 minutes left in normal time, a long clearance by James, who had, to be fair, had to be quick to get out of his penalty area in time to get there first. Launching it over the top of the defence, Panyatu looked offside, but there was no flag. He did well to lay it back to Bessemer, cutting it onto his right foot from the left. He hit a wonderful contact from 25 yards. which was arcing out and in towards goal. Leighton lunged at full stretch, couldn't quite reach it, and it just scraped the right post and went behind. The last chance of the match in the final minute of the match actually went Wrexham's way, and it was a chance for James to just impress once more. Durrell breaking down the left-hand side, hitting the byline, trying to put in a cross, took a deflection off a defender and span nastily towards goal. It could easily have spun over the keeper and into the net, but he backpedaled, and as I said, he's got a big frame, stretched, and managed to tip it over the bar. So a really good competitive match, and Wrexham continued their momentum, and again, like on Tuesday, dig out a result and a clean sheet from a game which they didn't dominate but did enough in. Excellent shifts put in across the board by Wrexham, which Dean Keats was rightly keen to emphasise after the match. Leighton, with those two fine saves, certainly kept Wrexham in it. They were at 0-0 when they made those saves. If he hadn't have done, Wrexham would have been in trouble. Across the back, I want to particularly single out James Horsfield. I thought he had an excellent game. He's clearly come back from a serious injury and he hasn't quite looked right. I mean, let's be honest here. That was a nasty injury he picked up playing for us last season. He's a quality player. He showed that last season. If he was fully fit, I don't think Dean Keats would have been hesitating and giving him what was quite a long trial period before offering him a contract. But let's be honest, we needed to make sure he was right. Now, Reece Hall-Johnson's unlucky to lose his place because he does drive forwards ever so effectively. However, Horsfield is a full-on right-back, and his first start of the season against Solihull, he didn't quite look himself. First half against Hartlepool, his second start of the season, he didn't look himself. But he got into the swing of things, and in the second half against Hartlepool was very good. And I thought he was terrific today, defensively, making challenges, getting in blocks. When he came forwards, he showed an attribute which he showed consistently for us in the short time he was with us last season. His quality of crossing is very good. He's an accurate crosser. He picked out Kwame Thomas for that headed chance. He's not spectacular like Reece Hall-Johnson. He doesn't burst with the pace of Reece Hall-Johnson, but he tends to find his man when he's out wide and is looking for somebody in the box. I was very, very impressed with Horsfield. Left back, Record again, did well. Solid defensively. Made a couple of important headers, in fact, late on. And carried the game forwards well, provided the assist, of course, although that goal had a lot to do with Luke Young. The centre-backs did very, very well. And Keller has been struggling with injuries for the last week or so and is digging in and repelling the strikers. Theo Vassell, again, covering well around the back of his centre-back, and they combined nicely. If you think about it, a lot of those chances were strikes from the edge of the area because they weren't getting in behind the centre-backs. In midfield, well, Luke Young, was Luke Young. Great strike. Always good energy. Always scrapping for the ball. Likewise, Jay Harris, there were two typical performances by the two of them. And they did well in a scrap, especially when Edsa dropped off a bit to make an extra man in the centre of midfield. Durrell was very impressive on the flank in the first half, cutting inside onto his right foot. Dixie spotted that the centre-backs of Aldershot played a little bit far apart. Durrell was driving into that gap and trying to capitalise on it. And in the second half, just trying to work those balls over the top, recognising that there was a different opportunity to create after the break. He did well. On the other flank, Rutherford's perpetual motion, perpetual intelligent movement, occasionally maybe in a box when a half chance came to him. Could have got the shot off quicker when he acts swiftly, such as the header who went just wide, although of course you can only take one touch with those. But also his ball in early for Ponticelli to set up the best chance of the match. He is more effective, I think, than when he dwells on it and waits for an opening to occur. But again, it was a very, very good shift by Rutherford. And then up front, I think there should be a massive amount of praise for Kwame Thomas. Again, excellent, running the channels, battling away. In the first half, he had a superb battle with Giles Phillips. It was a really impressively physical centre-back with pace. If we hadn't been up against a side of two strong, quick centre-backs like Lyons Foster and Phillips, I think we might have scored more goals, because a number of times Thomas tried to get in behind them and they were just about able to match him for pace and deal with it. But he was a constant threat, again, consistently good in the air. Ponticelli, I was impressed with. Okay, he missed that chance, but he's not match fit yet, is he? Clearly, he's not quite right, but he's just put in essentially 90 minutes. He came off in the last minute in a time-wasting substitution today with Adi Yusuf coming on. I was very pleased with Monticelli. His work rate was terrific. He did quite a bit of work helping out in midfield and defence as well. He was constantly running the channels, constantly trying to test the defenders, and it was an excellent performance by him. The goals will come for him, and that will make a difference, I think, to this Wrexham side. So really pleasing victory for Wrexham, which is hauling us again closer and closer to the pointy end of the table. Encouraging, very encouraging. Man of the match. Okay, you know what? There's a lot of candidates. There was no like absolute standout player, but a lot of players who put in good performances. Lainton obviously has to be considered. He did well. The match sponsor, man of the match, was Durrell, a perfectly reasonable choice as well. He created and was a threat in the first half. The media team, the radio commentary, the Mixler team, were talking about Rutherford for his work rate in the first half particularly, Harris and Young. I would possibly throw in Thomas for the way he battles with the centre-backs, and Kelleher as well. A lot of choices. I think I'm going Horsfield. Like I said, he just did his right-back job so well. He put some good deliveries into the box. Near the end, there were a couple of chances on the edge of the area with Paniatu running in on goal. He halted the first one with a brilliantly timed tackle. If he got that wrong, it was a penalty all day long. Excellent tackle. And then the second one, when Paniatu got onto his right foot and let fly, Horsfield stretched and got a good block in. So, yeah, I reckon Horsfield. But it was a good all-round performance. There were no weak links. And in a game when both sides, I thought, showed positive endeavour, the energy and desire to win that match, in the end, pulled Wrexham through. Plus an absolute screamer, obviously. The final score, Wrexham 1, Aldershot Town 0. I'm Mark Griffiths from the Wrexham AFC media team. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any of our content, and click the bell to get notifications.